Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I am your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the Respect for Marriage Act that has passed the Senate. We've talked about it before when I guess back in July, was it? When they got through the House, and I guess they didn't have much hope for it going further than that, but it raised some eyebrows at the time all across the board, and we'll get into it, but it's it looks like Biden's gonna be able to sign it at his desk before the end of the year. And there's just quite a few concerns with it, especially how it can hurt religious liberty and also how it doesn't really do much for protecting gay marriage. It's very much Scott Adams had a list of things that imaginary problems that Democrats solved. And so he put respect for marriage, but he made that list back in I guess July when this was a topic of conversation. So we're going to be talking about that today. Also, going to be talking about Chuck Schumer said a comment yesterday that really sounded like great replacement theory stuff that people say Tucker Carlson is a racist for pointing out, that we're not making enough babies in the US, and so we need people to replace, and it's good that we have dreamers, and we need to get people who are undocumented to be US citizens. And it's just a lot of saying the quiet part out loud on his part. So folks have been talking about it, and I definitely want to weigh in. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that we have on the website, articles, videos, etc. Make sure that you're liking, subscribing, sharing. A lot of people are like, hey, why don't you do Rumble? Okay, I got the Rumble channel up. You guys can go ahead and find Black Tea News, Black like the color, tea like the drink, on Rumble. I posted the link on my Facebook earlier today. I don't have it in the description of the video, but all my other links are in the description there. So it's extreme on there. You need at least 100 followers to go ahead and subscribe, and we can start streaming from there as well. People have asked, so there you go. But otherwise, please, you can find me on YouTube and Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, all those places. Again, the handle's Black Tea News, black like the color, tea like the drink. The only one that's really different is True Black Tea. That one's my Twitter page. I do have a backup TikTok page called True Black Tea. I'm have also another one, Cup of Black Tea News, which I'll be posting more there for reasons. If you follow me on TikTok, you probably know why. But you can follow all those accounts. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. You go to blacktnews.com, hit the donate button. Whether it's $10, $20, $50 or more. I appreciate everyone who has considered it, everyone who has pulled the lever and decided to do it. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website, it costs to you guys like all the fancier kind of videos. You're like, oh, it's so professional. Thank you, I appreciate that. My software is expensive. Everything is expensive. There's a cost to everything. And if you would like to help contribute to some of that overhead, God bless you. Big God bless you. If you can't, or you don't want to, and but you still like to watch and you just want to support, I thank you for tagging people. I thank you for sharing. All that really does help. But I do appreciate everyone, and people who especially want to go the extra mile. I also want to thank Brighter Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I'm just here speaking my mind, and they like to uplift conservative voices, so I do appreciate that, and them and the work that they do and have done. Also, I want to encourage you guys to go check out different merchandise that we have at the store. Black Tea News, like the pro-choice men are sus, which is short for suspect. My money, my business. We got the mugs. We got the cool goat hoodies and shirts, which it's getting a little colder. It's nippy out there sometimes. I'm in Michigan, so the weather is very schizophrenic. One day there's snow and there's not snow today. It's just a lot. But go ahead and buy some comfy, cool merch from the store. And also, you guys know that I have written a book about abortion, and it's called, well, you guys can see that from the cover. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. And I started working on it because I really did see a need for this. Um, and after the midterms, I definitely really see a need for this. So I will let you guys know when it's going to be up for pre-order. You'll be able to get it on Kindle and pre-order, and also paperback pre-order. And I'll keep you up to date with any events if there's any near you as I uh, promote it. And if you're out there and you have some kind of Republican club or uh, youth group or something along those lines and you'd like me to come and speak on the subject, you can go to blacktnews.com and go to the contact page and leave your request and get in touch, and we can work something out and go from there. So if you're interested, it's a topic that everyone who watches knows is near and dear to my heart. I normally like to talk about secular reasons, philosophy, biology, just mostly even just biology, and go from like the rights perspective. But people always bring in religion, and they bring up stuff that is so taken out of context. And it just started with like, let me get an article and debunk it, and then it just kept evolving. And I thought it was going to be a short book with just like maybe 20,000 words or something, and it ended up being like 80,000 words. And there was a lot to discuss, so it's a very meaty book that I'm sure that you guys will very much appreciate. And my youngest sister did the art that for me, at least the portrait of the hands, and then I finished it up when she was done with that. And so my older sister said, "Oh, the title's just so in your face. You could just have the words on the book, and that would be enough." And I had this idea of like the creation of Adam, that famous painting. I said, I want to do something with God reaching out to a baby's hand. So um, I normally do all my own art for all my book covers, and this is the first time someone else has contributed at all to it. Um, and I knew she was up to the task, and I love how it turned out. So mega kudos to her. She does art for a living as well. So if you guys want to check out the stuff that she has, her website is Tina's Text Portraits .com, and I'll post a link on my social media. But she's great, and she's tagged on Facebook where I first posted the picture of that, so you guys can find her that way. But she does these amazing text portraits. Like, she'll draw a picture of you out of words or a phrase or something. Like, people have had, like, a friend of ours, their dog passed away, so they said, "For the love of Boo," and she drew a portrait of their dog out of that saying. She did a wedding couple, I think their vows or something. There was a pastor, he had some kind of anniversary, so she drew him out of a prayer, and she does it all by hand, but she also does paintings as well. So she's fabulous. Go support Tina. She did a great job. Okay, so I want to start off with Chuck Schumer. So some time ago, people were really, really coming at Tucker Carlson for talking about um great replacement kind of theory, as if he was some kind of white supremacist. But on his show repeatedly, I'm going to play a clip from like last year where he just talks about how Democrats keep talking about destiny as demographics and all this other kind of stuff, about how people come in and they immigrate, especially where they expect you'll have all these illegal aliens and stuff come in, and that people are gonna move around and shift, and they're gonna flood Texas, and they're gonna flood other places in the South, and they're just gonna become Democrat voters, and Republicans will never win an election again. So that's not exactly what's happening. with the demographics, because some people come in, they flee countries that aren't so good, and they're like, we don't want you guys to mess up the country like our countries are messed up. So I don't think the plan is going to work out exactly how they think. And so the Republicans, who were so fearful for it, and the Democrats were so sure it was going to lead to their favor, um, it doesn't look like it's working out that way. Even though Republicans didn't get the boost that they wanted with the numbers during the midterms, we do see from the numbers that you have a shift in the Hispanic vote, and Republicans have an opportunity to take that vote. And there is a shift also, not a big shift, but also with African Americans. You can continue doing the outreach and stuff there. There's some hope there. It's always bothered me how much people don't want to try in the like big donor not, I don't know if it's big donor, but consultant class, I guess is better way to put it. Particularly, I'll say in my state, because I won't speak for everyone, but it's been a frustration where there's just some people who feel like, they're not going to vote that way, so why reach out? It's like, dude, go make your message known. It's your job to campaign. I know you want to be strategic on where you want to spend your time, but in Michigan, we live in a blue state, and you cannot just sit there on your couch praying for rain on election day so the Democrats stay home. There's no way to win the state. So please go up there and talk to people, explain why your message is better, explain what your plan is, how it's going to benefit their lives, how it correlates with their beliefs and their values, and go from there. And don't be scared. But anyway, Democrats have been saying and preparing themselves like, oh, we're going to wipe out the Republicans, et cetera. So I'm going to play this clip from Tucker Carlson. And this was a year ago. He's talking a lot about it on his show. But this particular one, again, is from a year ago.
We made the point a lot on this show because it's true that the entire purpose of the Democratic Party's immigration policy is to change the population of the United States in a way that guarantees they win every election going forward. This is effectively electorate packing. It's an assault on democracy. It devalues your vote. It's happening right in front of us, and we've said so out loud. And every time we do say it out loud, the usual liars and dummies who imagine themselves to be the gatekeepers of our national conversation throw a fit. They become apoplectic. They call us the usual names. Boo-hoo. And then after a few days, and this is the most interesting part, they inevitably go back to bragging in public about how they're using immigration policy to change the population of the United States in a way that guarantees they win every election going forward. It's unbelievable. And then expect us not to notice. Jennifer Rubin is a columnist at the Washington Post. Rubin is probably the dumbest person ever to have a newspaper column. She's also highly aggressive. So she does this a lot. She's got no self-awareness. And she did just the other day in print, hoping no one would notice, but we did. Here's what she wrote, quote, Democratic hopes that demography would deliver Texas have not been wrong, but perhaps just premature. The 2020 congressional races suggested that while the fight for Hispanic votes remains competitive, the sprawling suburbs around major Texas cities are increasingly moderate. Oh, in other words, crows Jen Rubin, the great replacement plan is working. It's helping the Democratic Party. That's the whole point. Well, thanks for telling us that, Jen Rubin. And let us know if it's racist to read your column out loud.
Such a good segment. So anyway, I think when a couple months ago, I don't remember what exactly sparked like outrage toward Tucker and for this particular topic. People bring it up all the time, but it became a big subject in the news, and I think we covered it. And someone did a montage of Democrats basically admitting kind of stuff like, "Oh, we can't wait till like." Basically, the demographics are going to flood in the countries, and it's going to shift in blue wave, etc. So it's not a conspiracy. If you talk about it, they'll point to you and say you're racist and all this other kind of stuff. But that's what they've been banking on. Again, that doesn't mean it's going to work ultimately, because I think a big issue right now with Democrats, with Republicans, is they've been hemorrhaging like the white suburban vote, especially like white women. and then the single white, not just white women, but single women break heavily for Democrat. The youth vote was up. I was looking at some numbers today. The youth vote was up in the election, but so was like everyone else. So by statistics or whatever, just percentage wise, they didn't have the impact on the electorate that they think they do. But the Democrats don't want them to know that they didn't have the impact that everyone is saying that they want, because you want them to think that they made the difference so they can still continue to keep thinking that they're the ones who make the difference, because it gives them the big head and it continues to make them want to keep voting and stuff. So they've really gone in on the youth vote with the student loan forgiveness of the Inflation Reduction Act being just climate change stuff. And also, I saw a guy on TikTok talking about this today, just pointing out like, hey, Biden and them, they've invested so much time bringing these influencers to the White House, and they brief them. They brief them on matters about the economy and Ukraine and all this other stuff, so they can go back and tell their audience. Now, when they brief them, they just indoctrinate them, and in some cases give them just false information and talking points so they can continue spreading it to their audiences, and then they will continue making more content, etc. There are conservative people on the app, and people are like, why are you on TikTok? It is a battlefield right now. I don't think is worth just totally conceding. So people are trying. But it's a lot of Gen Z is there. So many people have the dumbest opinions. Oh my gosh. But you got to try. But you got to understand, some of these people have millions of followers, and they say the most egregious, outlandish, dumbest things that are just provably false. But when you start reading the comment section, you're like, dear God, our civilization doesn't have long. When you start reading some of the comments, it's so sad. So sad. I used to have a lot more patience when I started out on the app, and it was a lot more fun, but I don't have as nearly as much, and so everyone pretty much has a quota. I used to be like, thank you for the conversation, and now it's like, you reach your quota. I can't take any more dumb comments. You're just, because you can't mute stuff either on TikTok. You see all the notifications. I'm just like, I can't. Once it's like we're going in a circle of, and you purposely, you're in a butterfly loop, when you get on the freeway and you got to get off, and but they keep going in the loop, and I'm like, I can't keep going in the loop with you. I just can't. You missed you didn't get off when you should have got off. Like, there should have been like a big sign that said, here is critical thinking, here is just the epiphany of where you should have realized the point, and you've decided to miss it several times, and I can't take anymore. And so I'm just like, I gotta block you. So yeah, I'm sorry for my frustration explosion on you, but yeah, they're all in on the youth vote, but it didn't make as big as an impact as they're saying, but they want you to think that it did. So just some interesting numbers from the midterm. But as far as like Hispanics, they don't have it on lock. They thought that they would, and maybe they still think that they do, and there's a chance. They still pretty much have the black vote on lock, but it's not impossible to just chip away a few more percentage points, and it doesn't need to be a lot. You start getting competitive in the double digits, like, well, maybe not just double, but if you start hitting like the 20s, they're just like doomed, unless they like really recoup that with white folks somewhere. But they really need the black vote. But I want to play this Chuck Schumer video. Now, keep in mind what Tucker said about a year ago, and this is what Chuck Schumer said just the other day.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
What? So he's saying we are not doing the job to replace our population. And why would we when we don't we do everything to discourage like family building. There's abortion is so beloved by Democrats that if women don't have the power to go have an abortion, they're saying that like they're lesser. And I don't think that's really computing. Like, oh, we're not equal because we don't have Roe v. Wade anymore. It's like you think you're not equal because you can have a baby and a man can't. Like that's just like the nature of your biology. So you're inherently inferior to men? Okay, that's not a flex, sweetheart, but you do you. I don't believe that, but okay. So they push abortion so hard. They've thrown out the importance of marriage, or at least marriage being something that it's built around like sustaining and uplifting the family unit. People are getting married less and they're doing it very late in life. And you don't have to be so offended if I talk about this. I'm a single woman myself. So, but it's just the facts of the matter is that we are society. Ben Shapiro says we're a society without a future. And it's the truth. And so Chuck Schumer saying, hey, it's even a good thing. Like we need all these people coming in illegally if we want to have some kind of future. To I don't know, rebuild the workforce, to pay for Social Security, all this stuff that people have been talking about and warning about for years, and they acknowledge that there's a problem. At the same time, people want to say that there's too many people and we have a population boom or crisis and etc. But they're like, no, keep bringing in more people, sure. And he said, however undocumented people there are, and it's got to be way more than the number that they think it is, or they're willing to admit it is, because here's a thermal drone video from in Eagle Pass, Texas. Bill Malugan, sorry, I'm saying that name wrong. With Fox, he posted this video, this drone footage, and it's just amazing. Yeah, so Ted Cruz said that 5 million illegal aliens have crossed the border since Joe Biden was elected. He said over 230,000 illegal aliens crossed last month alone, and he still isn't securing the border. I want to play this great clip. This was from the debate with Chuck Schumer. Obviously, Chuck Schumer ended up winning. No big shocker. It's not like it was a blowout though, but it was like 6 points. I mean, it's New York. You'd expect him to win, and he's Chuck Schumer. So, but he got really dinged on, in my opinion, on illegal immigration.
Well, let's be very clear. The mayor of New York City just declared a state of emergency for a migrant crisis. Chuck Schumer spent 2 years saying was a figment of our imagination. You deal it with securing the border. It is not equal level terrain. Some places need a fence. Some places need a wall. Some places need more boots on the ground. But secure it you must. We need to go back to the stay in Mexico policy. We need to make sure that the asylum process is cleaner, that people don't have to go through such a process that is so convoluted. But more importantly, we need to make sure that there's accountability for people to come, There are 4 million people waiting in line to come to this country legally. We need to make sure we're not hiring 87,000 IRS agents. Perhaps we should hire some more immigration agents to facilitate those 4 million people coming here, many of whom are joining spouses. So that to me is a conscientious plan to get the job done. I think, again, when you have less people feeling as if that legal line is not going to move, you'll have more people who are unwilling to swim across the Rio Grande because people are taking their life into their hands, pursuing an American dream they were told by this president to pursue illegally.
Okay.
He just killed that answer. It's too bad that Chuck Schumer obviously got reelected, but the border is not secure, and they don't want it to be secure. Apparently, they're like, they know we need illegal, immigrants to come over for the sake of saving our nation because we're not reproducing. And they know that we need to, but they keep pushing, to create more single Democrat female voters, I guess. And to keep, filling the pockets of Planned Parenthood and all these other folks. We are not a society that celebrates and upholds life at all. Man, I was I taught Bible study last night, and I was talking a bit about started talking about Candace Cameron Bure. I called her Bird, and people were just like, "It's Bure." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't follow her that much to know her last name like that." But Bure, okay. And her beef. It's not even her beef. People have beef with her regarding her Christmas Christian network and the fact that she's going to be focused on things that are biblically minded, especially like in the area of marriage. So I was talking about that, and I started talking about just what I just said about we are a culture that doesn't really promote and celebrate and uplift life. Like it's one that really worships death. And I talked about abortion, but I started talking about euthanasia, and they did not know how dire it was, like in Canada. We've touched on it, but in Canada there are people, you get the medical assistance in dying, and they're like, oh, it's bodily autonomy, etc., blah blah blah, which I don't understand why the government is should be involved in facilitating death like that. Okay. Why aid you? Why does the government have an obligation to aid you in that? But anyway, if you have some kind of chronic illness or something, there's people who get medical assistance in dying. I read a heartbreaking article, I think Barry Weiss wrote it, and about a young man who was his mother found out that he was going to commit suicide, and he was going blind, I believe, and his doctor put him up for it, and so she had to figure out how to save her child from killing himself or getting assistance in the dying. I saw a story the other day. There's a man in Canada, he has back pain, and his doctor signed him up for medical assistance in dying, and it's not even because his back pain is so terrible. He says he wants to live, but he just can't afford to live where he's living. He doesn't know how he's going to sell it, and he doesn't want to be homeless. So he said he could live with the pain. He doesn't want to die, and he's afraid of dying, but he's still going to die because he doesn't know how to pay for his home. And his doctors are apparently aware of this, but he's going to go, like, the real reason is out of homelessness, the fear of homelessness, rather than his chronic back pain. And they're going to make it so that you can get medical assistance in dying for mental health reasons. So right now, euthanasia is 3% of deaths in Canada. And I stress to them, I'm like, Canada is just right above us. Like, it's not too far-fetched to believe that if people keep pushing like the bodily autonomy thing and thinking that it's the government's obligation to meet your every desire, your every whim or something, what makes you think that we would not get to that point where we start going in that direction? And it's not like in Canada is there's other places that do it, but Canada has doesn't have the proper, well, I guess I'm not really for it anyway, but there's other precautions that other people have in place that Canada doesn't have. And we've talked about it a bit, but I told them, like, pro-life, it is against abortion, but it's also euthanasia. Like, people don't talk about the euthanasia stuff a lot because I guess people just don't really think about it. People don't know enough about it. Maybe they haven't really thought enough about it, the damage and what it can do, etc. But it's both those things. It's both those things. So I was glad that people were, the youth really liked it. We're like not even young adults. We're just we're just adults who aren't quite as old as other adults in the church. But I was glad that people were really blessed by it and challenged by it, to try to make the change. And I said, on one hand, it's very sad, but it's also a bit of a relief because so many things are so bad in our country right now that I'm just like, I don't know who can fix it other than Jesus. Like, I'm just like, Lord, you got to do something or show me how to have the impact for there to be some kind of change, because this is insane, the route that we're going down, and legislating some kind of policy isn't going to, I don't even know if you can do that, because the legislation is going to move to where where the voters go. And if the voters say that they want a certain thing, like Prop 3 passed in Michigan, which with a lot of deception, mind you, but if that's where the people are, that's where the people are, and you have to change the hearts and the minds of the people to get where we need to be to undo it. So there is no political figure that you can vote into office that's just going to cause a wave of change that's necessary. Those are things that people have to break down and try to change on an individual level. And I kind of got ahead of myself, but yeah. Demographics, is destiny, great replacement theory, Chuck Schumer, already they know that that's what they're banking on. And with illegal immigration, so many people will come and they'll get jobs and they'll send money back to families and friends in places in other countries. So it's not even like we'll all see that dollar of all those workers who will come here and participate, because a lot of people will send it off to other places. And that's understandable. You want to take care of your family stuff, as you're here in the US. But there's definitely a benefit to people encouraging people to continue to make families and stuff here, and then encouraging legal immigration. Because I've told the story several times. I've been to the Philippines in the 10th grade, and there's so many people who want to get over here. And I always think about this guy who was a volunteer for the what do you call it, when the embassy. He was a volunteer for the embassy. So he's going around following us with a satellite phone. He show up, ask a couple questions, etc. Blah, blah, blah. My dad was thinking to him, like, man, he is a nosy kid. But the reason why he would ask questions is because he had a satellite phone in his backpack. And if something happened to us, he would call them so the US government could know what happened to us and get us out. And we went to the Philippines. I forget what year it was, but I was in the 10th grade. For those of you who don't know, I'm 33. So some of you think I'm younger than I am. And you're like, oh, you give me such hope for the youth. I'm like, I'm not that young. I'm sorry. I have to crush your dreams. But I'm not a Gen Z or anything like that. Sorry. Well, you probably don't think I'm a Gen Z, but I'm not as young as people think. But during that time, or around that time, there were a couple of different terrorist attacks. There was like a bus of people who was kidnapped, Christians. There was a ferry explosion, like not too long ago from when we actually got there. So it was dangerous for my family to go to the Philippines at that time. And the State Department did recommend not going, but we felt that it was important to go. So my dad took me and my 3 older siblings, and we went to the Philippines. And it's funny, at that time, Bush was president, and I believe that if something happened, my dad would go as Rambo as possible to make sure that I got home. That um and had the utmost faith in God, but I also believed that the U.S. government would do something as well. I didn't expect that they would just leave us there; that they would fight to get us back. I mean, Bush had he's a cowboy sort of persona, and I bought into that, and so I just all that made me pretty confident that, hey, let's go ahead and do the work for the Lord, whether you think that's naive or not. I got home back again. Um, but that man with the satellite phone, he wanted to come to the US. You have people who do that kind of stuff because they want to, let people know, hey, we want to get there, we want to be American. And there's so many people who want to do it the right way who can't just cross the border. Now they're tracking a long time to get to where they want to be. And I guess that's admirable a bit, but for the um but there's so many people around the world who are trying to get here the right way, and I just jumping the line is just not cool. It's just not, and a lot of people who do immigrate legally resent people who do not do it legally. Um, we were talking about something other day, and and I was thinking, like, man, I need a new phone or something. Like, maybe I could just like sneak down past the border and they'll just give me one. Because they're just handing out cell phones to people. But they need to get the border under control for sure. For sure. And it is also sad that that mentality that I had, like, oh, America, they wouldn't let me just rot here or something like that. Once Obama was president, I didn't have that mentality at all, not in the least bit. And Joe Biden, forget about it. Like, I mean, if you're in trouble, forget about being rescued. Like, forget about it. Forget about it. I don't think people feel confident at all nowadays that the government is going to go out on a limb to make sure that you're safe. So be careful out there, especially people out there on the mission field. Okay, well, let's move on. So the Senate decided to go ahead and pass the Respect for Marriage Act, and um, they figured that they could get it done because they're like, oh, we can put some religious protections. Wink, wink. Now, before we go on, Mitt Romney you had Collins and Murkowski and other folks who signed on to it. I'm not surprised Mitt Romney did. He's such a squish. Not surprised. Um, but I've seen a couple of videos. People have been digging up stuff from Mitt Romney from the past, just to be like, hey, this guy's not a conservative. I mean, people had issues with the his in Massachusetts when they had like the Romney care. And I remember when he had the debate with Obama, didn't Obama like make some kind of remark like, we got to be patterned after what you did, sir? And that was a good dig. That was a good dig. But he just wasn't the most conservative choice. That was the election where I started to like get involved. Like, I've been a Republican and I voted the election before, but that was like the election when I started to get involved. And so I think the first like Republican event that I went to was a debate watch party with all these folks and stuff, and that at the Republican office. And so that was like kind of my introduction to the actual groundwork, and actually being involved and not just voting. And I was an informed voter, but it's just different. So I wasn't involved in the primary like process, and I mean, I didn't probably vote in that primary. I was just like, he's the Republican, and I didn't really question, like, people were like, oh, he's not conservative enough. And I didn't know I didn't know just a lot of stuff about Romney prior to that time. So there is a video, and I don't have this queued up, but there's a video of Mitt Romney like saying that he's not conservative, like it was a bad thing. But I do have this video that I want to show you guys.
I believe that abortion should be safe and legal in this country. I believe that since Roe v. Wade has been the law for 20 years, that we should sustain and support it. And I sustain and support that law and the right of a woman to make that choice.
So, just wanted to show you some classic Romney there. I'm sure there might be one to dig up about marriage or whatever. I don't know, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. So, Mike Lee, well, let me read Romney's response. He said the legislation provides important protections for religious liberty measures, which are particularly important to protect the religious freedoms of our faith-based institutions. I appreciate the efforts of Senators Baldwin, Collins, and others to address this concern and heartily support their legislation. While I believe in traditional marriage, do you? Obergefell is and has been the law of the land upon which LGBTQ individuals have relied. This legislation provides certainty to many LGBTQ Americans, and it signals that Congress and I esteem and love all of our fellow Americans equally. It sounds kind of familiar to what he just said about the Roe v. Wade thing. It's just law of the land. So here's the thing about the Respect for Marriage Act, which we talked about this again in July when this was first kind of brought up. It doesn't add any real protections of that's outside of what's already there. It repeals the Defense of Marriage Act, but in practicality, this if your state still has, if Obergefell is gone and your state bans gay marriage, your state still bans gay marriage. Your state still bans it. What it does say, if you go get married in California and you move to a state, and I think Michigan actually has a ban on gay marriage. If you come to Michigan, then they have to respect or whatever what happened in California. Like it does that, but it doesn't say that, hey, it's got to be legal everywhere. So there's some people who are saying this doesn't go far enough. There's plenty of people duped and like, oh, this is gonna be a great thing, and they're gonna cheer it on like it's so great. And people are questioning like, what's up with these Republicans who didn't vote for it or whatever, like, which I had to like break down several videos talking to different people like why it's not great on that front. Now these so-called religious protections that they're putting into it, people are saying doesn't really go far enough. Here's what Mike Lee said. I voted against the motion to proceed with the Respect for Marriage Act because of the religious liberty protections were severely anemic and largely illusory. While I respect the efforts and emotion surrounding this issue, the bill does not simply codify Obergefell as its proponents claim. And despite the proposed amendment from Senator Collins and Baldwin, the religious liberty protections are woefully insufficient. Religious Americans will be subject to potentially ruinous litigation, while the tax-exempt status of certain charitable organizations, educational institutions, and nonprofits will be threatened. My amendment would have shored up these vulnerabilities. It is a shame it wasn't included. So I'm going to play a video, a snippet from a senator talking about it. This is Langford.
This text now for about 36 hours. It literally just got dropped on us. So for about 36 hours we've been going through, and it's not long, it's 3 pages, asking questions, how does it work, what happens with it? And several individuals have said, hey, this is a real problem for religious liberty, we should fix this. And others have said, yeah, that's a good idea, let's make sure this is actually clear. Except, now that the debate has started, amendments have been shut out. There are no amendments. All of these gaps that I talk about for individuals, for small businesses, for individuals of conscience, for the right to be able to protect yourself if you're facing religious discrimination on this, for the limiting portions of in this act or from explaining not arising from a marriage, What that may mean the issue of principal purpose and not having to prove your principal purpose in a court of law is a religious issue. Everyone seems to nod their head and say, oh yeah, those are problems. Multiple members have brought amendments and said, let's fix it. And yet they're being told over and over again, no amendments. We're not going to fix it. You know what that tells me? These are not mistakes in the drafting. This was purposeful. That's what that tells me. Listen, I believe the rights of every individual should be honored. But this is not choosing to be able to protect the rights of every individual. This is saying some people are more equal than others. That's a problem.
Not more equal than others. That some people have privileges that are more important than everyone else. So this is a breakdown from Alliance Defending Freedom, and they said a big problem. One, there are no real protections for religious individuals or organizations. The amendment adds a new section to the Respect for Marriage that purports to address religious liberty and conscious concerns, but rather than adding any new concrete protections for religious individuals and organizations threatened by the Respect for Marriage Act, the new section simply states that those Americans whose beliefs are infringed can invoke already existing legal protections like the First Amendment and Religious Freedom Restoration Act. As such, this new provision does not fix the bill's negative impact on religious exercise and freedom of conscience. Those targeted under the bill will be forced to spend years in litigation and thousands of dollars in attorney fees to protect their rights. Yeah, and I think that's really the point. There's a lot of people who can't go through all that, who aren't willing to go through all that, who aren't going to put it all on the line. Hobby Lobby, when they were like, no, we're not paying for contraception that could possibly kill a baby. Like we're not doing that. And they were willing to put everything on the line for that. Not everybody's going to do that. And they're hoping that that to be the case. They want to have the opportunity to bully people into submission, and it's not really any different than look at the vaccine mandates that didn't follow the science, that didn't have any consideration for if people who were already infected, didn't have any consideration for the fact that if you have the vaccine, you can still spread the vaccine. For just a reminder, if you were not vaccinated, you had to do testing, and the employer didn't have to provide the testing. So that'd be a bill on you, probably. And you'd have to get repeatedly tested, and they'd swirl it up in your nose and all the other kind of stuff. It's not pleasant, it's inconvenient, and it's expensive, you know? Even though, because you need to make sure that you're not carrying the virus. But the people who are vaccinated aren't subjected to the test. But they could still be spreading it. So it didn't make any sense. The policy didn't make sense. But the point wasn't to make sense. The point was to beat you into submission, to break your will. Had nothing to do with science. Nothing. It was all about compliance. It was all about force and coercing you to do what they wanted you to do. Not because they cared about you and your health so much, because it didn't make sense as far as the health. It didn't make sense. As a matter of fact, it created a bigger problem because you're like, oh, these people have to be tested, but these folks are just fine and dandy. Didn't make sense. Not in the least bit. But it was about breaking your kneecaps until you cried out and said, I can't take anymore. So, yeah, there's going to be people who aren't going to be able or feel that they're not going to be able to go through all the litigation, and they'll just do whatever. They said, too, the amendment leaves out numerous religious social service organizations vulnerable. The proposed amendment adds language that confirms that churches and religious organizations would not be forced to solemnize or celebrate a marriage against their sincerely held religious beliefs. Unfortunately, this proposed provision ignores the true threats to religious organizations. No one thinks the Respect for Marriage Act requires churches to solemnize marriages. The real problem is that the bill can be used to punish social service organizations like adoption or foster placement agencies that serve their communities in accordance with their religious belief that marriage is a union for one man and one woman. The proposed amendment does nothing to help such organizations. So that's an issue. The amendment fails to concerns over nonprofits' tax-exempt status. The amendment adds a new section that attempts to address concerns about the tax-exempt status of nonprofits that live out their beliefs about marriage. Once again, the amendment fails to substantially remedy this problem when the IRS determines whether an organization is charitable under the Internal Revenue Code. It asks whether the entity's conduct is contrary to public policy or violates a national policy. If the Respect for Marriage Act were enacted, the IRS could rely upon the bill to conclude that certain nonprofits are not charitable. The amendment's new provision does nothing to prevent this. Unfortunately, the proposed amendment utterly fails to meaningfully address the serious religious freedom problems with the Respect for Marriage Act. The inclusion of provisions that purport to address religious freedom concerns may be a sign that senators heard the criticism of the bill, but the hollow nature of the amendment demonstrates they do not understand the depths of the concerns being raised. So those are concerns. Those are really big concerns. And again, it doesn't, if your state has a ban on gay marriage, if Obergefell falls, it still has the ban. Now, if you get married in California and move to Michigan or somewhere, then they have to respect whatever the laws were there. So I'm not saying it's totally useless, but does it go as far as they're pretending that it does, or help people to the degree that they think it does? No. And there's not any good indication that Obergefell is going to fall, because we know the votes aren't there. And by the way, I've talked about this before. They also included interracial marriage in it, which I shared this great tweet today. Let me find it really quick if I can. There's no such thing as interracial marriage. It's just marriage. Marriage between a man and a woman of different ethnicities is not interracial. Humans are made up of multiple ethnicities and yet are one human race. #stop it. Totally true. But the reason why they included interracial marriage, and I wrote about this before when this was a big topic in July, is because if you don't vote for the Respect for Marriage Act, they're going to say, oh, you're a racist. And you know what? There were Democrats pointing out, because there's a black Republican who voted it down. And they're like, who's married to a white woman? And they're like, how dare you do this? Like, because you can't just force everyone to eat a crap sandwich, even though you play your games. Even though you play your games. And so I talked about how underhanded and offensive it is when you look at demographics of people who are more likely to oppose gay marriages. It's normally black people. I mean, it would Prop 8 passed in California, 70% of black people voted for the ban, and people more likely to go to church are the ones. It's basically the only demographic. The people who go to church like at least once a week are the only ones who are like, nah, against gay marriage, like it's under 50%. Who are those people? Most likely be black people. So I'm like, this is really like dishonest how they're even like conjoining them together. But also, like, do you think it's the same? Now, I believe people should have rights, and if two people have a contract and they want to, I don't know, settle their affairs or something, make sure that they can have hospital visits and all that other kind of stuff. People should be able to do that. People should be able to do that. But are you going to say that if I married a white man, it would be the same thing as if I married a woman? Like, we would, it's not the same. It's not the same, especially if you believe that marriage is around like child rearing or like, I guess we've gotten away from that point of believing a marriage is about building the society around the family. So I guess it's lost a lot of its meaning and its value. But it's just not the same on any kind of biological level. I'm not saying the two lesbians can't go out and get, adopted, all the other kind of stuff, but it's just like functionally not in principle the same. So to me it seems very weird to include it. But I know why they included it, so they could point to people who vote against it and say you're a racist. That's why. That's why. And it could, because again, it doesn't force gay marriage to be legal. And the different cases with gay marriage and with Oberfell and interracial marriage, they wouldn't have the same danger if it goes down. If Obergefell goes down, doesn't mean that the interracial marriage would, be in danger at all, because that was more under equal protection. So, I know why they did it. I know why they did it. Oh, that's an interesting side point. Someone said the Upper Peninsula still has to have mask mandates. That sucks. That sucks. I haven't been up there in a while. I guess not since 2019. But it's getting cold. Not going anytime soon. So, it looks like it's gonna pass. I like they have to go back to like the House and get a vote, and if they're gonna ram it through before the Republicans get control, which there were plenty of Republicans who voted for it in July. And with these thinly veiled new additions, it will probably fool enough of them to say, "Oh yeah, well, it has these protections, so we can go ahead and vote for it." Like, no. But it's gonna, at this point, I don't know what else you can do. It looks like it's just going to pass, and there are going to be people who are challenged and probably sued. And if you're like, you think people would really do that? In Michigan, not too long ago, there was a Catholic adoption agency that was persecuted. A judge said that our attorney general, our crazy attorney general, Dana Nessel, just got reelected, targeted them based off of their religious beliefs. And she didn't think that they should be able to have an exemption, even though the law, like they're under Rick Snyder, a former governor, there were exemptions for religious organizations, but they didn't want to honor it. So they went to court and they were battling in court, and they ended up settling. And the reason why they settled is because another case that was similar in another state ended up, the religious organization ended up winning. So I guess they figured they didn't have any they wouldn't have any grounds to continue their suit against the Catholic organization, but it was St. Vincent's Charities. So yeah, people would rather these organizations not exist at all if they will not bow down to their whims. And I know there's so many people who just want to live their lives and not have this sort of animosity. Like they really just like, hey, I love somebody and I want to be with them. I know there's plenty of people like that are kind of more liberty-minded, freedom-loving, libertarian, perhaps even Republican. There's folks who watch my stuff, who comment, who are gay and trans. So I know there's plenty of people out there who like, I just want to live my life to the best of my ability, and we disagree, but I respect you and you can respect me, and we can agree and fight together on certain things, and we'll respect each other's space. There's plenty of people like that. Absolutely plenty of people like that. But the Democrats really, really, really have always used groups, the other, as a way to cudgel liberty out of people who are conservative, really. Whether it's, or just liberty-minded people, I think. It's really not a new thing. But the LGBT community is a really good hammer for them. Really, really good hammer for them. So again, this isn't going to do much in protecting gay marriage, but it will achieve some ends for them as far as targeting people they don't like. And if they can get people to submit, that's great. You're no longer a threat if you have decided to submit and conform. If you are someone who's willing to fight, then you are someone who needs to be destroyed. And it goes back to the Candace Cameron Bure situation with her films on the Great American Family. She left Hallmark. She didn't like the direction they were going, so she started her own thing with Abbott and decided to make this network. And they said, hey, we're going to focus on traditional family, and people are angry, even though it's like Christmas gospel kind of traditional family stuff that they're making. That's a niche market. I'm a Christian. I'm not like gonna go seek out, the Christmas movies or something. That's a niche that it doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't make me excited. In the least bit. I didn't watch Lifetime or Hallmark either, really. Okay, so it doesn't appeal to me. It's a niche market. Someone's like, it's not a niche market. Like, it is a niche market. It is, but she left them to pursue a different avenue and to be able to provide content for people who have similar religious convictions as herself and provide that service. And people are still angry. People are still angry. She conceded that ground and started something else and was like, I'm going to build a parallel market, and people, if they like it, they can come over to my side. But they're like, you don't want that I don't even so much if it's about the competition or the audacity. How dare you have the audacity to think that you can just not do what we want you to do? So it's really like, it's amazing how people will call her bigot. And she had like the sweetest response. I think I read it all yesterday. She had the sweetest response to these people. She's like, I love you anyway. People who've tried to defame me, ruin my reputation. She's like, I love you anyway. I love, if you didn't read her response or you weren't here yesterday when we went over it, just go look it up. Great response. Way better and more Christianly than I probably will have responded to these people. I know if God tapped me on the shoulder like, hey, you need to delete that and rewrite that. I'm like, okay. Very classy. Very classy. I read in Bible study, everyone was like, man, she did a great job because that couldn't have been me. But they're angry because she just won't conform. But there's literally a scripture in the Bible about we're not supposed to conform to the ways of the world, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. It's Romans 12:2. I'm pretty sure. But it's not good enough. So at the end of the day, there's so many people who just want to be left alone to do their own thing. And there's plenty of people who have a libertarian view of marriage and thinks that the government should just not be involved. But this isn't what that is. This isn't what that is. And Godspeed to everyone who wants to stick with their religious convictions. And I think people should not have to go to court every time there's a problem. And everybody can't go to court. But when Democrats want to protect something, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll close out. With Prop 3, they wanted to protect abortion. And what did the Democrats write in the laws? They said, you cannot penalize, prosecute, seek any adverse action against, etc. They made the language there was a lot of broad stuff in it. But that was clear that you cannot do anything to anyone who helps someone get an abortion, period. Because that's how much they wanted to protect it. It isn't, they don't want to protect religious liberty. They want to make you think that they're doing something, but not really. So, Godspeed to everybody out there. Godspeed. If only we could, we're not all going to agree on everything. We're not, and that's okay. I'd be scared if we all agreed on everything. I don't agree with everything with people in my family, with my siblings. So we're all different people. We had very similar experiences growing up, but and we're very similar people, but we're still very different people, and we don't all agree. So I don't expect strangers to agree with me. Even if you're Republican or conservative, whatever, I don't expect everyone to agree with me. But we do have to live in a civil society where we can respect people's differences and learn to move on, even though you may vehemently disagree with someone. But these people, they don't believe in that. They want you to submit. So, like I said, Godspeed. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the broadcast. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, check out different merch that we have. I like this really cool the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document shirt with Frederick Douglass on it. We got the You Are Not That Special mug. Maybe you need to get that for someone in your life. Also, let me show the I Am Not the Victim You're Looking For. Really fond of that shirt as well. Please go ahead and share different articles that I have. I dropped one the other day about Trump in the midterms and his speech. I dropped one the other day about the pro-life movement and why people shouldn't be discouraged even after the midterms and we didn't get the results quite that we wanted. But there's still good reason to fight and to be encouraged. You can go to blacktnews.com also, check out different books and stuff that I have. That's a picture with me in all of my books that I have published right now. So I have plenty. If you go to Black Teen News and you go to the merchandise page, there's a banner that will take you over to my book website if you want to check out some of those books, like Super Kid and Super Kid 2. You got some little ones that need some really good chapter books that instill some really good values. And I'll let you guys know when my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, will be on sale. So just keep a lookout for that. And God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.